I've been seeing people so mad over this Roe versus Wade decision that I had to make this video. Had to make this video. Look here. Y'all really think that the Roe Wade decision has to do with everybody in America? Do y'all really think that the Roe Wade decision had to do with any minorities in America? I'm going to show y'all something because I've been telling y'all this for years, but I think it's time to show y'all something. Take a look at this.
I used to work in an abortion clinic. I was the guy that would walk women and their families back to their car after the procedure because people would line up on the curb and sidewalk and try to scream and yell and throw stuff at them. The strict rules at the clinic that you had to show up for work between 6 and 6:30. One day I had been out partying till like 3:30, 4 in the morning, and it made sense that I would just go to the abortion clinic where I worked at, nap in the parking lot versus driving 45 minutes home and then driving 45 minutes back after like an hour of sleep. I got to the parking lot, there was a line of black cars. I went inside and I saw a sea of white women in the waiting area. My boss physically pushed me out of the waiting area. I was let go later that afternoon. I realized I had come across a big secret. Abortion clinics open up for the general public around 7 in the morning. This particular clinic was opening earlier for more wealthier clientele so that their services could be more discreet.
All right, so now y'all done heard a black man statement on it. Y'all done heard what's going on in Planned Parenthood from a black man. But maybe y'all need to hear it from white folk because, most black people, they don't believe other black people. They just say it's conspiracy. So take a look at this.
We begin with an alarming story about rising death rates among white adults in America. WSJ's special writer Betsy McKay joins us now to discuss. Thanks for being here, Betsy.
Thanks for having me.
As you point out in your piece, this trend is shocking for an economically advanced country like the United States. What is driving the uptick in deaths?
Well, this is a really interesting study, and it follows on some work done about a year and a half ago by the same two economists at Princeton, which found that mortality was rising among middle-aged Americans. So then they set out to figure out a couple of things. One, how widespread was that problem? And secondly, what might be driving it? So what they found in their new paper is that mortality is rising not just for middle-aged Americans, but for Americans between 25 and 64 years of age. And what's driving that really is our rises in mortality in people who have a high school education or less, so working class Americans. For people with a college degree, mortality is still declining. So to have, mortality rise in a developed nation is very, very unusual. And we've, our mortality rates have been declining for decades.
Right.
They posit a hypothesis, which is really interesting. They examined a ton of data, economic data, health data from, national sources. And what they believe is going on is that the types of jobs available to working class Americans have changed since the 70s. They're less stable, more minimum wage jobs, less opportunity for advancement. And at the same time, there are a lot of social trends, decline in marriage, more cohabitation, more children born out of wedlock, more social isolation, families aren't stable.
Right. Well, it's also interesting because these studies always look at race. And here the researchers found that blacks and Hispanics face many of the same income struggles as the white working class, yet they've experienced a decline in mortality rates. So how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, well, so that's the puzzle for everyone. What they say is that for whites, for working class whites, times were better earlier. So in other words, there was an expectation, more of an expectation of life improving. Whereas for blacks and Hispanics, they've been moving up, certainly, some parts of those populations, and there wasn't the they believe there just wasn't the expectation that with every generation you're going to live better than your
most
parents.
unusual trend is unfolding in America. The number of deaths among middle-aged white Americans has been rising significantly since 1999. This is a major reversal of a decades-long life expectancy among this demographic group. It caught the attention of two Princeton University professors who decided to investigate what's going on with so many white Americans and why they are dying. Here's what they found. The deaths are largely driven by suicides, alcohol, and drug abuse, particularly the opioid epidemic, also chronic diseases such as heart disease and diabetes. Now, what's interesting about this is when you begin to examine these numbers, it's having an impact when it comes to the demographic changes. And so one of the reasons we are becoming a more majority minority country is a result of white Americans dying at an earlier rate. There was a Time article actually a couple months ago that I found to be interesting that even showed that in a number of states in about 5 years, the white death rate will actually surpass the white birth rate.
Wow.
Yes. No, that's real. That's real.
Both of these videos were from 5 years ago. 5 years ago. 5 years ago is when I found out about the study. 5 years ago is when I found out that this was going on. So when the Roe versus Wade decision came down, when they started even talking about the decision, I already knew what it was about. It's not about you, black people. It's not about you. They're trying to save themselves. And you can't blame them, can you? They're trying to save themselves. The next thing is coming down the line is they're going to change the same-sex marriage thing to save themselves, because they know that this is damaging to the people as a whole. Now, you know what I'm saying? I know y'all on this pro-choice, my body, my choice type stuff. But if this is a part of population control, then what do you want? And I can even show you it's a part of population control, because the woman who even started Planned Parenthood, a stark racist, I can show you what she said. Take a look at this.
As founder of the American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger was no doubt a controversial figure with disturbing views on eugenics, race, and population control. While some argue she even wanted to exterminate the Black race, others are trying to erase that part of her past. In 1916, Sanger opened the country's first birth control clinic. As a member of the American Eugenics Society, she advocated improving the genetic composition of humans through controlled reproduction of different races and classes. She often wrote about the issue in the journal she founded, called the Birth Control Review. In 1919, writing,
I personally believe in the sterilization of the feeble-minded, the insane, and the syphilitic. The most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective.
Many point to a 1923 New York Times interview as proof of Sanger's racist motives, in which she referred to people as weeds, saying,
It means the release and cultivation of the better racial elements in our society and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extirpation of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization.
Hayden Ludwig, an investigative researcher, has extensively studied Sanger's life and writings.
She talked about the need for race betterment through controlling these weeds, basically undesirable people.
In 1939, after opening another clinic in Harlem, the birth control activist launched the Negro Project, an initiative supported by Black leaders, such as civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois. Critics claim the program used the pretense of better health and family planning for poor Blacks in the South as an attempt to limit the Black race. Sanger once shared her vision for a preferred race at a women's branch of the Ku Klux Klan, writing in her autobiography,
Always, to me, any aroused group was a good group.
Despite those views, liberals praise Sanger's work while ignoring her history.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I am really in awe of her.
But look here, man. Y'all ain't got to hear it from me. Y'all ain't got to hear it from me. Y'all can go look this stuff up yourself. And I know it's a pretty long video, but I'm just trying to inform y'all on what's really going on out here and what y'all really need to be paying attention to. You know what I'm saying? It's not about you. It's not about your body. It's not about your baby's future. It's not about anything of that nature. It's about them saving themselves. It's about them saving themselves.